Imagine the worst financial day of your life. You wake up and everything you built is gone. The government has frozen your accounts. They've towed your cars. Your mansion, the one with the marble floors and the golden Grammys on the shelf, is about to be foreclosed on. And you're not 50, you're not 40, you're 22 years old. That was Will Smith's reality in 1990. The same man who would one day star in Men in Black, The Pursuit of Happyness, and become a $350 million entertainment mogul was dead broke, over $2 million in debt to the IRS, and completely ashamed. But here's the part they don't show you in the highlight reel. That disaster didn't end him, it made him. Today I'm going to show you the exact strategy, the psychology, the hustle, and the painful, beautiful pivot that turned a bankrupt rapper into one of Hollywood's most resilient self-made kings. And if you ever felt like the walls were closing in, this story is your blueprint. Stay with me. To understand the fall, you have to feel the high. West Philadelphia, born and raised, you know the story. Will Smith was a charming, witty teenager who linked up with DJ Jazzy Jeff, and together they became hip-hop pioneers. They didn't just make party records, they won the first ever Grammy for rap in 1989. Will was a millionaire before he could legally drink. He bought his parents a house. He bought himself a palace outside Philly, filled it with luxury cars, motorcycles, designer clothes, and a full recording studio. He moved his whole crew in. He was the prince before the Fresh Prince even existed. But here's the trap that catches so many first-generation success stories. Will didn't understand the tax code. He thought the money in the bank was his money. He didn't realize that Uncle Sam wanted a massive cut, and he wasn't writing those checks. The IRS doesn't forget. By the time the recording studio lights dimmed and the album sales cooled down, the party was over. He owed the IRS an unthinkable sum for a kid, $2.8 million. His assets were seized, the cars were reported, the mansion was liquidated. Will Smith, the Grammy-winning rapper, was financially radioactive. He later described the feeling as a deep personal failure. He was sitting in an empty apartment staring at a bare wall, too embarrassed to show his face. The boy who made everyone laugh couldn't look at himself in the mirror. That's the moment where most people break. Will Smith broke open. Rock bottom has a strange magic if you're willing to listen. For Will, the universe sent a lifeline in the form of a legendary music producer named Quincy Jones. Quincy saw something in this broke, charismatic kid, and he invited him to a party at his house in LA. Now think about this. Will had zero acting experience. He was terrified of humiliating himself again. But his grandmother had once told him, God places the best things in life on the other side of terror. So he showed up. Quincy, in his brilliance, orchestrated a moment. He pointed to a group of high-powered TV executives at the party and told Will he had 10 minutes to audition for a sitcom right there in the living room in front of strangers. The series was based on an idea Quincy and Brandon Tartikoff had cooked up. It was called The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. With his back against the wall and $2.8 million in debt screaming in his ear, Will stepped up. He didn't perform like a trained actor, he performed like a man who had nothing left to lose. He poured every ounce of his pain, his humor, and his Philly swagger into that room. He got the part on the spot. But here's the cold hard truth they don't sell in fairy tales. The sitcom didn't make him rich overnight. The IRS was still there. In fact, they garnished 70% of his Fresh Prince paycheck for the first 3 seasons. Yes, you heard that right. The star of a hit network show was taking home pennies on the dollar while living modestly and rebuilding from zero. The real lesson isn't the luck, it's the willingness to grind in the shadows after the luck. This is the part of the story where the emotional gold is. Most people think I just need a big break. Will got the biggest break on TV and he was still in financial handcuffs. So what changed? His mind. During those early Fresh Prince years, Will didn't party away his small paychecks. He did something radical. He found a mentor, a businessman named James Lasseter, and he started studying. He devoured personal development books. He listened to Jim Rohn's tapes on wealth. He learned a principle that would shape the rest of his life. Don't work for money, make money work for you. He realized his music career failed financially because he was a spender, not a builder. He was an artist, not an owner. So he made a psychological shift. He decided he wasn't just a performer renting out his time, he was an asset, and he was going to invest in himself. Here's the inspirational core: Will Smith didn't run from the embarrassment of his tax debt, he branded it into his brain. He turned the shame into a fuel so powerful it burned for decades. He told himself, I will never be that financially vulnerable again. I will never let my family down like that again. This internal vow became his compass, and the moment the IRS garnishment ended, he didn't celebrate with a Lamborghini. He celebrated by laying the foundation for an empire. When the Fresh Prince wrapped, Will had a clean slate and a sharp mind. His friend and now business partner, James Lasseter, mapped out a formula for global stardom. They didn't just look for movie roles, they reverse engineered what makes the biggest movies in the world work. The formula: sci-fi or action with a comedic lead, heavy special effects, and a save the world hook. Bad Boys in 1995 proved he could carry an action film. But the masterstroke was Independence Day in 1996. That movie grossed over $817 million worldwide. Then came Men in Black, which made nearly $600 million. Will Smith wasn't just a star, he became the most bankable actor on the planet, a man who could guarantee a $100 million opening just with his name. But here's where the $350 million lesson kicks in. Remember, his whole trauma was about being taxed into poverty, so he and his team innovated the deal structure. Will started negotiating for gross points, a percentage of a movie's total revenue from day one, not just the net profit after the studio does its accounting. This is how you build generational wealth. For Men in Black 3, for example, it's reported he didn't just take a salary, he took a massive chunk of the back end, walking away with over $100 million for a single film. He stopped selling his time for a paycheck. He became an owner of his own box office. The man who once lost a mansion to the IRS was now getting paid whether the studio made a dime on paper or not. That is the shift from being a talent to being a mogul. A true fortune is never built on a single income stream. Will and his wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, understood that fame is fragile, so they built a fortress of diversification. They co-founded Overbrook Entertainment, the production company behind The Pursuit of Happyness, Hitch, and The Karate Kid. Now, he wasn't just acting. He was producing, collecting paychecks from every angle, but his most brilliant pivot came much later, when he understood a new currency: attention. In 2017, when a lot of 50-year-old stars were dismissing social media, Will went all in. He hopped on YouTube, then Instagram, showcasing his adventures, his humor, and his vulnerability. He bungee jumped out of a helicopter for his 50th birthday. He spoke openly about his marriage and his fears. Why does this matter for his net worth? Because he turned his social media into a multi-million-dollar advertising platform. Brands didn't just pay him for movie endorsements, they paid for access to the 60+ million followers he'd connect with directly. He and Jada then launched Westbrook Inc., a media empire encompassing film, TV, and their hit digital talk show, Red Table Talk, which was sold to Facebook Watch for a staggering sum. The family enterprise today is estimated to be worth $350 million. The mansion in Calabasas, custom built on 150 acres, is a testament to a family that doesn't just earn, they own. He turned the pain of a 1990 IRS seizure into a masterclass on asset protection and multiple income streams. We are getting to the heart of it now. I promised you emotional inspiration. So let me leave you with the 3 core principles from Will Smith's resurrection that work for anyone, whether you're facing $28,000 in credit card debt or a midlife career crisis. Principle 1: fear is a liar. Will often talks about how all great change lies just beyond the thing you're afraid to do. He was afraid to audition in front of strangers, he was afraid of failing publicly again, but he walked toward the fear. As he famously says, on the other side of your maximum fear are all of the best things in life. Principle 2: you don't set out to build a wall. He tells a story about a father giving his 2 sons the task of building a massive stone wall. It looked impossible, but they just focused on laying one brick as perfectly as they could every single day. And eventually a wall stood. Will didn't think, how do I make $350 million? He thought, how do I do this next scene perfectly? How do I make this deal a little smarter than the last one? Real wealth is built brick by brick, day after day. And principle 3: pain is the teacher. don't waste your rock bottom. The 2.8 million debt wasn't a curse, it was a brutal, expensive education in financial literacy that he's now used to earn 100 times that amount. Your divorce, your bankruptcy, that failed business. It's not the end of your story, it's the setup for the comeback. So, how did Will Smith go from a $2.8 million tax debt to a $350 million fortune? He didn't just get lucky, he got humble, he got educated, he leveraged the one asset the IRS couldn't seize, his unstoppable work ethic and his refusal to be a victim. He's had personal scandals, he's had public embarrassments, and yes, he's made mistakes that would sink most people. But the financial blueprint remains a masterpiece. He went from an employee of his talent to the CEO of his life. As we look at our own ambitions and setbacks, ask yourself, what's the wall you need to build? What's the fear you need to walk through? Will Smith's story proves that no amount of debt, shame, or failure has to define your final chapter. The Prince of Bel-Air didn't just inherit a kingdom, he built it one perfectly laid brick at a time on the ashes of his own disaster. If this story hit you in the chest today, if it gave you a little bit of that fire, smash that like button, share this with someone who needs to hear that it's not over for them. And comment below, what's the one fear you are working toward this week? I read those comments and this community is here to support you. I'll see you in the next story. Keep building your wall.